Hey everybody, surprise! It's Tuesday, it's Tumblr Tuesday, but I'm going to try something new. So this is a live Google Hangout like we've done before, right? This is very familiar for us. We've done many of these. And I have questions on my screen here, so it looks like I'm looking around. I'm not reading the teleprompter. I have my questions. So anyway, I prepared questions just like it's a regular video day, but I thought it'd be convenient your service. I believe you can get on, and then you can be like on this with me, like hang out with me. Hello, and I think you just say join the conversation. And then, from my understanding, I was just talking to Sean because he is much more techie than I am. We think that we can get up to 9 people on it. So if you want to be one of those 9 and you have a question to ask, or you want to answer one of my questions, I think that's how we'll do this. So let's do this. But anyway, so happy Tuesday. Yeah, it's Tuesday, which isn't as exciting as Friday, but it's not so bad. So anyway, I've been on Tumblr, and I picked out 4 questions. I'll see if I can get through them. If any of you pop on, then you can ask your questions. And yeah, so let's just see how this goes. And I think, okay, I've invited everybody. Sorry, I'm just looking at all these things. This is very new to me. But okay, so we'll get going without further ado. Hi, Katie. Thanks for all you do for everyone. Oh, you're very welcome. I get very excited to do this. It's the best part of my day. I'm sure you have hundreds and hundreds of asks, so not sure if you'll see this one. Well, I did. Surprise. I was diagnosed 2 years ago with BPD and dysthymic disorder, and I've been in therapy for over 5 years. I'm now 20. Are there patients with BPD that struggle with it forever? I feel like I've done everything. DBT, 5 inpatients, meds, therapy, but I still feel like I'm always going to have this distorted thought process. I do have an amazing therapist of 4 years, but I'm afraid that I'll get dumped. I thought this is a great question because a lot of people who struggle with borderline personality disorder, that's what BPD means. For any of you who are new to my channel, I also have a video on it. If you want to search on my channel for it, you can find it that way so you can learn more about it. But so borderline personality disorder, as with all personality disorders, are something that they believe, the reason they call them personality disorders is because they believe that they will hang out with us for the rest of our lives, like we'll always have them. So to that end, I have to say that yes, it could be something that you struggle with for the rest of your life, but not in the same way that you may feel like you're going to struggle with it. With saying that, what I mean is that when we struggle with borderline personality disorder, before we get any help and we don't have any support, it can feel like our emotions are just running us. They are doing everything. I've heard BPD explained as a burn victim, like how sensitive their skin is. That's how sensitive we are emotionally. Like we're an emotional burn victim, and everything that touches us is like, it hurts and it's hard and we don't know how to manage it. But the more we do DBT, the more help we get. Potentially medication. I have some clients on medication, some who are not. It can get better and it can get more manageable. Yes, we may still have these little, what you call like faulty thinking ways where we kind of jump to a conclusion sometimes and we think, wait, no, because DBT teaches you to slow down that jumping. We may still think of jumping, or we may even in our minds jump there, but in our life we have the wherewithal and the knowledge and all of our tools, right, to slow it down so that we don't do it so much in real life. I hope that kind of makes sense, because our brains can be wired certain ways and we're predisposed to act in a certain way, but that doesn't mean that we have to. The thing that DBT really helps us do is slow down that process and that time to kind of lash out or get hurt or cry or get upset or whatever it is. It gives us a time in between there to be like, wait a minute, is this my BPD talking or is this me? And it can help us slow that down. And yeah, so I hope that makes sense. I hope that helps. And if any of you have experience with BPD and you felt like you've come really far and you're getting better at, overcoming those urges and the impulses that come with BPD, let me know, and let me know what's helped, because there are a lot of us who struggle with it, and it can be really helpful to know what tips and tricks and tools have helped you. Okay? Let's see. Does anybody want to get on? Can you get on? I got to open up the chat. I'm going to open up the chat. Okay, I think, let's see. To list, oh, okay. Anyway, question number 2. Hey Katie, love your videos. Anyway, I'm just really curious about something. I know that you tell that what your clients tell you is confidential, but can you as a therapist tell your own personal therapist something that one of your clients tells you? Not sure if that makes sense. It totally does. But if a client tells you something that upset you, could you talk to your therapist about it, or would that be breaking confidentiality? I thought that was a really cool question, because oftentimes we don't really know the limits to confidentiality, and here are a couple of them. Let's just talk about confidentiality. So yes, everything you tell me, if you're 18 and over, or if you're 12 and over and there's a reason that we're not including your parents, everything you tell me is confidential. That being said, there are some limitations, many for safety, like the fact that there's even a Tarasoff. You can look up Tarasoff as the name of this woman, Tarasoff, who got murdered. It's if one of my clients, if I think they're a threat to someone, they've told me that they're going to kill someone. I know who this person is. There's imminent danger. There's all these things I have to have, but then I can report them. I can call the police, and I can call the potential victim. I can also report child abuse, elder abuse, and dependent adult abuse. So I'm mandated to report those things. And there are a bunch of limitations within those kinds of things. Like if I think that my client is either in danger themselves or going to endanger someone else, that includes the ability to put someone in a hospital on a 5150. Those are kind of the reasons that I can talk to other people about it. Now, some of the other considerations that we take into, I guess, the ethics, more the ethical than legal, is things like if I seek supervision, because I was an intern, right? So I have to talk to my supervisor about my cases. That's something I have my clients sign off on, or they were aware of. And as a licensed marriage and family therapist, I can seek consultation from other therapists. And when you do this, you don't really give all of the specifics. I don't give them the name. I don't give them exactly maybe distinguishing characteristics about someone. Like, let's say I've seen someone famous. I wouldn't want to say, oh, they're famous, and I wouldn't tell you what they did, but I could still tell you the situation and get some insight. And so those are things that we can do as well as therapists. But within my own therapy, I can definitely talk about what my clients are going through. Again, there wouldn't be any distinguishing or identifiable information that I'd be giving. It would be more along the lines of what my response is to it, because part of being a therapist is managing what we call countertransference, which is when a client is responding to you in a certain way, and then you're responding back to them due to that. Is that clear? So it's like, let's say a client is lashing out at me because they're angry at their mother, and so they're talking to me, and they're lashing out at me because of that, and then I lash out back and I act maybe just like their mother, then that would be that countertransference. That would be really bad, and I would probably have a bad feeling about this client. I might be frustrated when they come in or something like that. And so that's something that, as a therapist, I'm responsible for managing and making sure it doesn't really enter the room and I don't make it uncomfortable or hinder the work that we're doing. So yeah, I would work on it in my therapy, but it would be more about me, not about my client. It's more my response to my client. Okay? So yeah, that wouldn't be breaking confidentiality, but obviously I don't share like identifiable information. Okay? I hope that helps. Let's see. I'm posting into the chat because I don't know how that works, but we can see if anybody gets. I'm learning. We're learning together, right? I think these things are kind of cool, and if someone wants to be on here with me, I think they can. Let's see. Okay. I'm just playing around, guys. Okay. Question number 3. Hey, Katie, my question is, if you've been diagnosed with bipolar, what would be the best kind of therapy? My therapist specializes in DBT, but from my understanding, this is the most helpful for treatment of BPD. Is that correct? Yes, that is correct. What sort of therapy/therapist should I be searching for? Thanks heaps. Love your channel. So the interesting thing about bipolar disorder is that it really depends on how you experience it. Now, there are various levels and stages and types of bipolar disorder, and I say it that way because there are 2 types, bipolar 1 and bipolar 2. If you're curious about the distinguishing characteristics of those, I have a video on bipolar disorder, and I talk about how we can swing up and down, and depressive episodes as well as manic and hypomanic. You can check that video out for more information. But as far as seeking therapy and getting the right type of therapy, what does that mean? What's that like? It's up to you. I have many patients that I see for bipolar disorder, and we just do regular talk therapy. because for them, a lot of their bipolar is spent in the depressive episodes. They're bipolar 2. Something that is very, very, very important if you struggle with bipolar disorder is seeing a psychiatrist. Not that we have to be on medication, but it's important to know all of the options that we have. Manic patients, I haven't had any myself do this, but I've had many people in my supervision groups as well as other clinicians that work in my same office tell me that they've had clients who have gone into full-blown mania and spent all of their life savings, gone on like a complete spending binge, or another person like ruined their marriage because they went on kind of like a sex spree where they were just sleeping around with people. Because for those of you who don't understand mania in bipolar disorder, it can make us really impulsive. It can almost make us believe we're like invincible and we can do whatever we want and everything we do is amazing, and it gives us this really intense sense of elation. And so if that's something that you struggle with, I mean, for any of my clients who've had that, they're on medication because we fear that coming back. Obviously, most of the time they enjoy kind of that feeling. Obviously, you feel really good and everything's amazing, nothing can hurt you, so that feeling is really nice, but it can be really dangerous. So we try to make sure that that's managed with medication. I have other clients that have done really well with CBT therapy, focusing on you know, kind of faulty thinking and a certain thought process. A lot of it has to do, again, with kind of the depression part of it, and also gaining insight into us rising into maybe a hypomania or a mania, what that feels like, kind of recognizing it. And when it comes to that, so we're talking about that curve going up, I think that DBT therapy could be really great. So I would talk with your therapist about it. I would be open about your concerns and what you're struggling with and kind of how your bipolar disorder expresses itself, I guess, and then work on a treatment plan together so you feel like you're working and getting the best out of it. Because it really just depends on our symptoms, right? We're really just working on our symptoms and working on ways to better manage them. And so therapy can be helpful in a lot of different ways, and a lot of different types of therapy can be helpful. So I would just, those are my thoughts on it. And if any of you struggle with bipolar disorder and you have a certain therapy that's really helped you, will you let us know? Because this is just within my experience and those that I've worked with or you know, been working with as far as psychiatrists go, or other people in supervision groups and things like that. So I hope that helps. Okay, and question number 4. Oh goodness, I forgot to hashtag my question. So now they did, and that's how I found it. I'll ask again. So the clinical psychologist I have seen weekly said I shouldn't try to control my anxiety. I shouldn't control my breathing. I shouldn't clench my fist, and I shouldn't try to distract myself from the anxious thoughts. I just don't understand. What's your opinion? Now, anxiety is a really interesting thing because it can come on for what feels like no reason, go away for no reason, stay for long periods of time for no reason, and it can also come around when we know shit is bad and stressful, and we're like, what do I do? And it can hang on during those stressful times, right? So it can be triggered and not triggered. It's a very interesting phenomenon. And I was actually just talking with one of my friends last night, Rocio, about anxiety and where we think it comes, because everybody struggles with it. I'll be honest and tell you that sometimes I have anxiety about situations, and you know, we all worry. I think a lot of times when we're really worried and, you know, keeps us up at night, we feel our heart racing or whatever, that's all part of feeling anxious. Should you control your breathing? Should you, clench your fists, try to distract yourself from the anxious thoughts? It depends on their belief system. I would have to say that helps a lot of my clients, the controlling your breathing. That's one of the best relaxation tools. For some people, maybe it doesn't work. I don't think it's a hard and fast rule. I honestly just don't really like when people are like, you shouldn't do da-da-da-da, and you shouldn't do, because we all know that doesn't work. You can't just tell us not to do something. You have to try to help us try new things and work on it and notice, and we have to start somewhere. We can't just not do it. I'm not going to do any of that because I just don't think that's really that helpful. I think the best thing to do is figure out what works for you. I would even ask, I'd say, I don't understand, you know, breathing really helps me, or meditation really helps me calm my anxiety, or stretching helps, and coloring, and those are distracting tools, and those are things I do. So if you say I shouldn't do any of that, then what do you propose I do? Because if they're going to tell you not to do something, I would challenge them to tell you what to do to some extent. Like, either you can engage in a conversation where you talk about it and you try to figure out what's best and run through ideas together. But if you're not going to do any of that, I don't know what you would do. Do you? So I think keep doing what works for you. If the relaxation tools I've done in some videos help, if even progressive relaxation where you like flex your fists, relax your fists, flex your toes, relax your toes, and you go through your whole body, if that helps, do that. If coloring helps, do that. If you know, playing a musical instrument helps, do that. If calling a friend helps, do that. If singing helps, whatever it is, I would do it because it's your body, it's your mind, it's what you are the one that's suffering from this. So if something's helping, then I would do it. But I would also just ask why and see if there's anything else they can say. Okay? That's what I would do. So I don't see any questions on the side or anybody that wants to come on. Maybe I'm not understanding. I'm doing my best, guys. I'm trying to learn. So we're going to hop over to YouTube real quick and see if when it posted, sorry, it's warm in my house today because it's like we're having this crazy summer. So let's see if I can find it here. And then if any of you are asking questions live on live feed, because I'm on the Hangout, and the Hangout itself has a chat room, and so maybe that's not where it's posting to. I just want to double check. So if any of you have asked, you don't feel like I'm ignoring you, because I would never do that. Let's see. Let's see what's happening. Oh, it says live now. Okay, we're going to go in there, guys. I'm going to see what is happening just to make sure. Okay, I see. I have questions. That's what I had a feeling, because it's always getting used to these different things. I have a chat on the side of Hangout where there's no questions, but I'm in here and I see some. So here, let's run through some questions in the last 10 minutes. I can't. Sean is trying to talk to me, guys. He's always distracting me. So anyway, I'm just going to go with my thing. I can't stop. He doesn't want to be on camera, so he can't really help me right now. Okay. So, oh, this is good. And I think in the case of anxiety question, it's about accepting the anxiety. For me, the panic and not trying to control it. I totally hear you. I am furthering the panic. I have to agree. Sometimes the thoughts of it and the overwhelming, when we kind of get into that like panic feeling, we make it worse without even realizing it. Sometimes actually not trying to control it can help in the moment when we feel like we're going into panic. Okay. Somebody asked the question, what do I think of my fan bases? I think you guys are amazing. I honestly, so I go to all these different YouTube events, right? And I'm going to go to Vlogger Fair, and I went to VidCon 2 years in a row. I have the best fans of anybody. I think most of it is because my people are thoughtful. Like all of you are usually very thoughtful, very caring, and we're actually in relationship with one another to some extent. I feel like my fan base isn't just like, not that it's bad, but it's not like a celebrity person where we're like, oh my gosh, I love your dress, things are amazing. We actually have a relationship. It's like we're talking about real issues and we're actually communicating with one another. And so I think that to that end, I have a much deeper fan base. I have a much deeper relationship. It's just different. It's not the same way. I don't know if you guys would agree or not, but that's how I feel about it, because it's not like a Tyler Oakley, for instance. Many of his, I feel like it's not just you following my life and seeing what I do. We're in this together. It's you following me and what I'm doing, but me listening to you and letting you as the fan base guide what I do. I mean, without you, there'd be no me. So, okay. Now let's see, are there any others? We'll do a few more here. Okay, I don't see any others, guys. So I think that is it for now. Yeah, that's all I have. So anyway, share your thoughts below, like always. I wish I could figure out how to get people on here. I know Sean said I can, but I just don't see it. There's nothing here. Because I invited you. Let me invite. I'm going to invite again. If you want to get on and ask questions, I do my circles. invite. If you want to get on, I'll give a few more minutes and we can see if any of you want to get on. In the meantime, I'll pop on Tumblr one more time here and I will read a question. Okay, this one says, hashtag Katie FAQ. Sorry, I'm still warm. Why do eating disorders often change? Example, anorexic to bulimic. Love your channel, it's fantastic. Oh, well, thank you. It's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting how eating disorders will change over time. Now, the reason that I believe they change, and you can disagree with me and let me know what your experience is below, but it goes to the root of the reason that we have our eating disorder to begin with. And we usually struggle with an eating disorder because it is our only way of coping. We don't have any other way to cope with what's going on. Something is feeling really overwhelming. It could be a traumatic experience. It could be anything from extremely stressful life situation. It could be, I don't know, extreme pressure to do really well in school. It could be any number of things that can cause us to utilize an eating disorder as a way to cope. Now, that's the reason that we have it. Now, it can shift because sometimes we may not be able to stop to restrict anymore and be anorexic. That may be something that maybe physically we can't do. Maybe we're forced into treatment. That happens with a lot of people. I used to struggle with that with my clients in the inpatient because they'd get used to being on a regimented eating schedule, and then they'd binge and purge. Then when they get out, they binge and purge because they were used to eating more, so their body got hungry because your metabolism kicks into gear, and instead of learning to manage hunger and fullness, they would start binging and purging because you're still using it as a coping skill. So I think they shift over time for that reason, and on that same vein, it's because sometimes we try to work on one part of it, like, okay, we're going to start eating because we weren't eating, or we're going to start managing our eating because we aren't binging anymore. And eating disorders are shapeshifters to still hang on because part of us is still afraid to let go of that coping skill because of what may happen if we don't have it. It could be anything from, what if I'm not sick anymore? Will anybody still care about me? Or it'll tell us, there's nothing special about me except for this, which these are all lies, by the way. Or your world's going to crumble if you don't keep yourself together. I have a lot of patients that feel that way, like this is them keeping themselves together. So it can shift over time for many reasons, and it can shift because of external, like you're in an inpatient, or internal, if your body can't do that anymore, and so you start trying something else. So it's still a coping skill, right? Okay, one more question. Let's see. Okay. Okay, I get this question a lot, like a lot. Hey Katie, I've been dealing with an eating disorder for about 14 years and self-harm for about 8, but I don't feel like I want to recover. Any tips? Now, the interesting thing, ooh, got a tickle. Interesting thing is that want to recover. And I have a lot of clients who felt like they never wanted to recover, but there came a point where keeping their eating disorder, their self-harm, got really difficult and it was really uncomfortable for them. Whether it be, I had a patient who got a tickle. She abused laxatives so much that she could no longer hold. I think I've told you about this. She had to wear diapers. She was incontinent, and so that was really terrible. And she decided to go into treatment because obviously that's not what we hope to happen. It could be, we reach rock bottom, whatever that is for someone. Or it can be external, like if we're younger, sometimes our parents can force us into getting help. Am I right? And that can be kind of bad. So I'd venture to say we don't have to want to get better. We just have to not want to be sick anymore and not want to deal with it anymore. So I may change the way I even talk about it, even on my videos. Not so much that you have to want to recover or be recovered, or it's just that you don't want to have to deal with it anymore. Because I think at the core of it, that's what we get sick of first, is thinking about it all the time and managing this and then having to deal with that and then worried about questions about this and trying to figure out how we can get away from the table in time or how I can hide my scars from whatever. It's a lot if you think about it. And I think for many of my clients, we've found that at the beginning, we think that that's the root of their anxiety and their depression is managing all of that. Now, obviously, it's secondary to the real problem, but we talk about that at first. And, you know, we try to make kind of pros and cons list about what's good about our eating disorder, our self-harm, and what's not good. Because obviously there's reasons that we have it in our lives. It's protected us. It's kept us safe. It's been a coping skill, right? However we're using it. But obviously there are downsides to it, and there are reasons that we may not want to do it anymore. So that would be my advice, is maybe take the time to think about it like that. Don't think, do I want to recover? Do I want to be better? Because that's something that we almost can't imagine at this stage. So I think it's sometimes better to be like, do I want to do this for the rest of my life? Is this how I want my life to be? Like from here on out, this is what I'm doing. I'm signing up for that. Because often the answer is no. And unless we're struggling so much that it may be time that we're forced into inpatient or something. Sometimes we can't see out of the darkness. But yeah, so those are my thoughts on that. Now let me see if there are any more. Okay, this is a good question and a quick answer. Katie, generally, how many clients does a therapist have in private practice? It differs a lot from therapist to therapist, and I honestly believe it depends on how business savvy or how much of a business person they are, because some people have crazy amounts of patients. Like, you can have more patients than you actually see regularly. To that end, I mean, like, I have clients that go away to college, right? I have clients who are doing really well, and so they don't see me anymore. But my door is always open to them, right? So when they come back for summer, I see many of them. And some may need like a booster session, so we'll schedule them. So I may have, be responsible for like 100 patients. I don't know how many. I'd have to like actually count. But let's say it's 100, right? But I only see, because if you think about it, I prefer to see my clients every week. Some I see twice a week. So there are only so many hours in the day. And at the maximum of a week, if you're working a full week, 40 hours, that'd be a lot. For me, that'd be way too much. And I think if I remember correctly from school and even in my studying for my licensing exam, because they talk about what it'll be like when you're licensed, I think the average is about 25 to 30 clients. So those extra 10 to 15 hours a week are times when we spend either doing paperwork, progress notes, self-care of ourselves, like going to see our own therapist, yeah, and everything like that. So that's about the average. Okay. Let's see. We'll do one more since that was really short. Oh, this is something I haven't talked about in a while. So I'll talk about this and then we'll call it a day. How's that? Hey, Katie, I've been purging a lot recently. I have a lymph node in my neck that is extremely painful and swollen and unbelievably painfully sore in my mouth. Also chest pains when I'm lying down. I'm guessing that's from my behaviors. Is that all common? Unfortunately, yes. Something that I haven't talked about in a long time. It's some in my older videos. We talk about kind of the results of an eating disorder, like how our body copes and what actually happens, because it's not a scare tactic, but it's something that we all talk about, right? And it's something we worry about, maybe, and we wonder what is this going to do to us in the long run. And when we struggle with bulimia, one of the biggest, or my biggest worry, is my patients dying of a heart attack. And anorexia as well. Heart attacks. I worry about heart attacks a lot, which I know you're like, Katie, what the heck? Why would you worry about heart attacks? But that's because, number one, we get really, really dehydrated. Our electrolytes get really imbalanced. Our potassium levels, down, nothing. And that makes it really hard on our heart. And we can have QTc prolongation, which can cause like a atrial fibrillation, like our heart flutters. And it can cause heart attacks. It's really scary to me. Also in anorexia, if we're struggling with that, if you undereat for a long time, if your body doesn't get the nutrients it needs to survive, it begins to eat away at muscle, which some patients of mine, when they first come in, they're like, oh yeah, thigh gap, woo. I'm like, no, fuck no. that's muscle, but you know what else is muscle that we haven't thought about and we haven't talked about in a long time is your heart. You can get chest pains. It eats away your heart so that your heart actually is smaller. So it can't actually do as much as it used to do because our body eats away at it to help us survive. It eats away at our bones, giving us osteoporosis. It eats away at our muscles. It starts to just eat at whatever it can because it doesn't have the nutrients to help us survive. And this isn't to scare you. I'm not like, boo, this is horrible. But it's the truth. This is how our body copes with being malnourished for long periods of time. And so that's really scary because then our heart is smaller than it usually is and it can't really do what it used to. And oftentimes I have a lot of patients who exercise a lot. It's part of their eating disorder. And then I really worry about their heart rate going up and I get really nervous and it really worries me. And I try to caution them against it. You know, and if they're younger, we talk with their parents about it and being cautious. But those are concerns that I have, and those are things that can really happen. So please, please, please get help if you worry about this because it's really hard on our bodies. And I know you know that, but sometimes I just have to remind. Okay? Well, I love you all. Tomorrow is the website, and so KatiMorton.com and YouTube. So ask your questions below this video. Use the hashtag KatiFAQ. And on my channel, you go to community, and then you go to hashtag KatiFAQ questions, I think it says, or I forget how I worded it. But anyway, you'll find it. It's not hard to find. It's from the homepage. And I will see you all tomorrow. Okay, bye.